Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Okay, so today we are going to be doing something that's a little bit different, well, very different from what we're used to. These completely different colors. Now I am going to record this using my tripod, and this is the first time I'm using my tripod on my tabletop, so I do apologize that it is not really in the right angle, but I tried my best to zoom in so that you guys can see what I was doing. So I have already actually done the opposite hand in pink, so I am going ahead and doing this hand in blue, and this blue is actually a custom made pigment color that I made myself using mica powders and my base powders. I am using the oval brush and it is a size 18. I started doing nails with a size 8 brush, and as time went on I went bigger and bigger and bigger, but I don't think I will go past the size 18 because I think it gives me the perfect coverage, and I'm even actually considering getting a size 14 and a 16 because some people have smaller nail beds. Like how you're seeing in the photo there, her nail bed is relatively large. Some persons, their nail beds aren't that large. Now I am aware that everybody has their own unique ways of doing nails. Everybody have their signature. Usually some people, well, I have noticed that some people put their colored acrylic and then they go and encapsulate, and sometimes I encapsulate right after putting the color. Sometimes I do all the colors and then I encapsulate, so it really depends sometimes on the mood, sometimes what type of acrylic that I'm dealing with, because every acrylic sets in its own unique way. So it's a matter of knowing what you are working with, and you just pay attention to how your acrylic dries so that you do not have any clouding underneath the nail after you apply the clay acrylic. It's a personal choice to encapsulate acrylics. Some people don't encapsulate, but I always encapsulate, especially when I'm dealing with colored acrylics. And because this set is only acrylics, I am definitely going to encapsulate all the fingers because it preserves the color underneath, rather than if you do not encapsulate, when you come to file it, you may file off the acrylic color that you just put on, which for me is basically undoing all the hard work that you just did. So I always encapsulate all my colored acrylic with clay acrylic. Now I'm not too sure if you can see the container that I'm about to dip my brush in. As you can see, it is named Just Beige, and that is a cover acrylic that I created myself using my bases. I do make a lot of my own acrylic colors. I like to do that because to me it gives me the opportunity to match people better because of skin tone. So I like to make different shades of covered acrylics so that I can have a better, a better judgment when it comes, so the person in front of me, I can see, okay, this is too light, this is too dark, this is perfect. So I made this one. In case you're wondering, I actually did not come up with that design. The client came in and she had an idea of what she wanted. She wasn't bent on doing blue. She actually thought that she just wanted pink, but when she saw the blue, she decided that she must have that blue. But she did come in with the concept, as in that she wanted one color on one hand and the other color on the other hand. So what I did is that I just basically took some of my designing glitters and I worked up something nice for her, and I had a hard time getting her to settle her hand so I could see what I was doing, because she was so much obsessed with seeing how I was doing the acrylic. So on that finger, what I did use, I just used some blue iridescent glitter, and I created an ombre, which is the blue, and the just beige, and then I created an ombre with it, and then I applied the glitter, and then I applied my clear acrylic. On the middle finger, all we are going to do is that we are going to create a 2-part color pattern, and that just means that in the middle of the nail, as you can see where I've created the smile line, I cut off the colored acrylic. We are going to create a groove that I can put the glitter on the inside of that space, and then I'm going to continue at the bottom and create the second part of the pattern. These glitters are dry glitters, which means that you cannot pick them up unless you have a wet brush, but they do not contain any type of acrylic in it. So it's basically just raw glitter. So what I do, I normally wet my brush with some monomer, and then I go ahead and I pick up the amount of glitter that I want. And it's something that I noticed that I do, and I didn't even notice that I did it unless I was actually recording myself. I always tend to wet the nail before I put the clear acrylic on it. I don't know why, it's just something that I do. I cannot explain, I don't have an explanation for that. It's just something that I do, it's just part of my routine. And as you would notice, I pour monomer often in my container because I am more comfortable with adding monomer than pouring a whole lot of monomer and then having to waste it. Because for me, whenever I do nails, I like to clean my dish as I go along, because acrylic is a powder, it does leave residue sometimes, and depending on the pigments that are used in your application, it makes the monomer chalky or cloudy. And if it's cloudy, when you come to apply your clear acrylic, it may not be as clear as you want it. So when I do nails, I pour only what I need when I need it, and then when I go on to use my clear, I usually clean off the dish and then pour fresh acrylic in there. Now that we are done, it's time to file, and I actually enjoy filing. I enjoy filing more with my hand file than I do with my e-file, and that's another pet peeve. I hate when people say my nail drill. It is not a drill, it is an e-file. It's an electric nail file. I love my e-file, but some work I like to do with my hand file. And right now I am using a 100-180 nail file. The lower the number, the coarser the file, the higher the number, the finer the grit. So if you have a file like, let's say that's 100, it's gonna be a really rough file, and this is a file that you do not use on your natural nail plate because it is too abrasive. But if you have a file that, let's say it's 240, then you can use that on your natural nail plate because it's very, very fine. It's like almost like a buffer. And though it may look like I'm being really, really rough with her hands, that is really not the case because the video is sped up, so it's making it look a lot more aggressive than it actually is. But I am not hurting her, I am not scratching her, and with the hand file, even though it's not an electric file, you still have to be careful when handling it, because you need to know how to hold the nail file in order that you do not cut the client. Now, if you notice, like for example, as I'm doing right now, if you look at where my thumb is right over her cuticle. So my thumb acts as a guide to know that the file will not touch her cuticles or give her any scratches on her skin. So I use my thumb as a guide to help me to know that I cannot go any further with the file. How you hold the client's hand as well as how you hold your file will determine how you shape the client's nails. Now, if you hold your file at an angle, you tend to go in. Like for example, if the file is more leaning towards the client, then what you're gonna do, you're gonna create a curved nail. If you hold the file at 180, which is straight, then you're gonna have a clean cut. If you hold the file facing you, then it's gonna give it a curve towards you. So you have to really be trained on hand filing to know how to hold the file, to know that you can do the job properly and do it straight. Like I said, I love working with my hand file because it gives me that crisp effect on shape that you cannot get with an e-file. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that some persons probably cannot do it, but I don't prefer to use the e-file to do that. I use my e-file to clean around my cuticles and to clean underneath the nail. But when it comes to getting that crisp shape of the nail, I like to use my hand file. And as you can see how I'm flipping her hand towards me, I like to do that because sometimes when you look at the nail from your perspective, it might look like tip is straight, but when you turn the hand around as if to say you're giving the client something to hold, then you can see really where your imperfections are, and then you can fix that. Now right now I am using my e-file and I am using a cuticle bead. Well, it's not really a cuticle bead, but it's the bead that I use to clean around the cuticles. If you look at it carefully, you can see that it has an edge, and that is one of the reasons why sometimes clients are afraid of the e-file, because if you are not trained to use it, you will hurt the client. So the end of that is very sharp and it can literally cut through your skin. So whenever you get to that part, you need to ensure that you have a good grip on the client's hands, and also remind them that you are going to be using a tool, that it's important that they don't do sudden movements. Some clients are a lot more restless than others. Some clients will sit there and they will not move, and others will tend to move around, pull their hands, jerk their fingers. Some of them are afraid of the file because of bad experience, but it's something that they said during training. The nail file cannot hurt you. It's the person who handles the nail file that can hurt you. So if the person who is using the e-file is not trained to use the e-file, then it's really the person using the e-file that's hurting you and not the file itself. Because if the file is used properly by a trained professional, then you cannot get hurt. Most e-files these days, if you are to spend money, good enough money to get a good e-file, they actually are 3,500 RPMs, and that's rungs per minute, which means that they spin very, very fast. But more times than not, you do not need the maximum speed of an e-file to get your job done. I usually never go on total speed of my e-file. I normally use it between half and a quarter speed, depending on what I want to do. When it comes to etching the nail at the beginning of the service, the e-file is literally just starting off power, like very, very, very slow, because that is your natural nail plate and you do not need it to be fast, because the speed creates friction, and that can also create grooves and burns in your natural nail plate. Once I get comfortable with the shape of the nail, I move on to the buffing phase. And buffing is basically using a much finer grit to get rid of the scratches which are created by using the hand file because of the abrasives. So the buffer, what it does is like a sandpaper, but it's a fine smoothing sandpaper that gets rid of all the scratches, bumps or lumps that may be left after you have used your hand file. And I am using an orange buffer, and those buffers are to be thrown away after use. But because it has two sides, in some instances, depending on the work that I do, I may use one for every 2 clients and then I throw it away. Then once I am satisfied with my buffing job, I also ensure that I pass the buffer block underneath the nail, and what that does is that it smooths off the sharp edges, because not everybody likes sharp edges on their nails. So the buffer block, it soothes off those sharp edges that it may not scratch your skin. And to sometimes avoid the sharp edges as well, I would ask the client to pass their hands on my skin in a scratching motion so I can know which ones are actually sharp. Once this is done, I send the client over to wash their hands, and at this point we get to the last stage of this application, and that is putting on the gel top coat. I only use one type of gel top coat, and I usually apply 1 coat because it is a very thick gel top coat, so I usually just need 1 coat, and then I put it to cure for 60 seconds, but it really just needs about 10 to 15 seconds to cure. It doesn't need the 60 seconds, but for security I put it in for 60 seconds, and that's just about enough time for me to be able to top coat the other hand anyway. So I just allow the client to leave her hands in the lamp while I work on the other hand. Sorry, I was unable to actually record putting on the pixie dust. As you can see on her index finger on that hand, I forgot to record that part, so I do apologize. So right now it's just basically putting on the top coat on the other hand, and this is a no wipe top coat, so which means once it gets out of the lamp, it is pretty much good to go. She can go ahead and chuck her hands in her pocket. She can go home and wash her plates or scrub her bathroom or anything that she desires, because that is the magical thing about using gel polish. Once you are out of the lamp, you are dried, you are comfortable, you can do anything. You can go home and do whatever you want, peel fig, it doesn't matter, your polish will not be disturbed. So this is a close-up look at the nail, and right now the top coat is completely dry, but we normally allow a few seconds for it to cool down, and that's what the fanning effect with my hands is for. So I allow the hands to cool down, and once that's done, I apply the cuticle oil to her cuticles. Cuticle oil is very important for those persons who are using artificial nails. It's actually important for those persons who have natural nails as well, but the cuticle oil in this case helps to lubricate the cuticles after having used chemicals on them that actually dehydrates the nail. So using the cuticle oil allows us to give the nail back that moisture, and I am just repeating the same thing on the opposite hand after allowing the hand to cool off once it is out of the nail dryer. Yes, so this is the finished look of her set, and it came out beautiful. I love the 2-color concept. I never would have thought of that. Well, I actually didn't think of it. But anyways, if you have reached this far, thank you so much for watching our video. Remember to subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. You can also let me know what you want to see. So thank you so much. Share this video with your friends and have an awesome day. See you next time. Mwah.